Today's date is Monday, September 13th, 2021. My guest today is Irene Bearly. Irene is the content strategist for Aquarium Co-op, where some of her responsibilities include creating educational and easy-to-understand blog articles, creating original content for the Aquarium Co-op YouTube channel, and other marketing-related activities. In addition, Irene is the creator of the popular YouTube channel Girl Talks Fish, which to date has 111,000 subscribers. So Irene, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
So thank you very much, Irene, for taking time out of your busy day to jump on with, I can't use the complete stranger line because we are coworkers, we're teammates, we know each other, but nonetheless, for jumping on. And actually, I should probably thank Corey for, kind of giving us the ability to have the work freedom to be able to jump on an hour-long podcast.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corn Dog. On that note, before we get into anything, Irene, I guess I am going to put you in the hot seat. So let's get the sponsorship out of the way. This episode of the Aquarius podcast is sponsored by none other than aquariumcoop.com or aquariumcoop.com, however you want to pronounce it. Irene, what product, one or two products, and one is okay, would you like to talk about to our audience to promote Aquarium Co-op, throw a little sponsorship out there?
I will have to admit that probably the product I use the most of in my aquariums would be the Aquarium Co-op sponge filter. And yeah, I used to use hang-on back filters. I've used canister filters. I've done many things, but now every single one of them has a sponge filter in them. And maybe that's just because I keep a lot of nano aquariums, and so they do like that gentle flow. But I always love how it's really coarse and it doesn't get clogged up all the time with gunk, so it's really easy to clean and it blends in very well in the back with that black and green color. So thanks to the team that developed it.
My favorite feature that is like the most unsung feature of the Co-op Coarse sponge filter is the instant sink. The fact that the sponge filter is coarse, and having set up a fish room with 40 plus tanks, and you do the thing where you order like all the cheapest sponge filters you can off Amazon, which are going to be super fine, and when you don't really know any better and there are no other options, you go and you set these things up and you've got 40 floating sponge filters, and so you're spending the next 2 weeks constantly squeezing the air out is ridiculous. And actually one time I almost had it where it was going to spit water out if I didn't actually have lids on the aquariums. So the sponge filter would float all the way to the top and then it would shoot water out of the tube. So that actually could have been that was actually my son coming in. He's got his new Build-A-Bear little raptor. We're leaving this in the podcast. So he wanted to say goodbye. They're going to the reptile zoo. So that's kind of adjacent. I think they're actually going to see some aquatic animals at the reptile zoo. So that is an okay adjacent little note there. But yes, Aquarium Co-op Coarse sponge filters. Love the product.
I've actually added a new hack recently. I stole it from LR Brett's, where he puts that little deli cup lid on the top of the airline tube. And so any of that splatter you were talking about, it won't get on the lid anymore and cause that ugly green slime. So I started doing that as well. It's very helpful. And it provides shade, because a lot of times my sponge filter is right under the light. So now I don't have a problem, since it's shaded out, I don't have a problem with blackbeard algae growing on my sponge filters anymore.
Very nice. So,
a little pro tip for you guys there.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Have you made a video about that yet?
I sure have. Check it out on Girl Talks Fish.
Okay, there we go. Great job, Randy, of doing your research on videos that Irene has put out. And I will say, let's just keep this little sponsorship rolling here. Aquarium Co-op Powerhead. So we now have a Powerhead. So Irene had mentioned that you can get a gentle flow kind of natively through using a coarse sponge filter or sponge filter in general. Now, if you want to supercharge that bad boy, you slap the Aquarium Co-op 211 gallon per hour Powerhead on there, and it actually fits. So, I mean, this is going to be terrible for just a voice podcast, but like the little green uplift tube doohickey actually can kind of marry into the Powerhead perfectly. It's a beautiful like friction fit in there. Totally by design, of course. And it supercharges your power head, so you basically can have like much greater flow going through your tank, and that will also help to increase the filtration, and actually kind of boost that mechanical filtration as well of the sponge filter. And this is to Corey's credit, having a cord on that thing that's like a half a mile long. Because the worst thing, and actually in my fish room, there's probably like 3 different things that I have extension cords running to, because they put like a 3-foot cord on it. They're like, hey, we're going to make this aquarium product and we're going to put a 3-foot cord on it. Oh, no, folks. the Powerhead, the Aquarium Co-op Powerhead, has an 11 and 8 inch cord on it, I believe. 11 foot. I'm sorry, 11 inches would be terrible. An 11 foot 8 inch cord on the Powerhead. So it's
Yeah, that's
pretty.
something you would never figure out unless you weren't constantly in a fish room and like working on aquariums. Like a lot of these companies, I feel like they develop products and they don't know, it's like, this is what they kind of need, right? Versus if you were really using a power head, day in and day out, you're like, oh, I can never reach that outlet. Where's that
Yeah.
extension cable, right? Like that's what I love about kind of like aquarium products made for hobbyists by hobbyists.
That's actually a good point. And so there's, kind of having done this now for approaching 3 years, there are kind of two schools of companies out there that service this hobby. One are going to be those that just purchase off the shelf. So they'll go over, they go overseas or domestically even and say, oh, you've got products XYZ. That looks great. Let's slap our name on it and let's import it. The second is going to be, like a Hagen that's actually going to have, or ZoomEd are two good examples, in-house design. And so they'll actually kind of design their own things. Now, some of their stuff is also off the shelf. But some of theirs are actually like homegrown kind of ideas and designs, and then they'll go over to a contract manufacturer overseas and have them produce it for them. And so we are definitely somewhere kind of in the middle of that, but I'd say more so leaning towards like the actual, we'll take a design that's off the shelf and improve it to actually be much better for the home aquarist, and then at some point we'll start doing and actually, no, we actually have done this, original designs from scratch. Definitely very, very exciting. And yeah, so there is our Aquarius podcast sponsored by aquariumcoop.com. So head over there, get yourself some Coarse sponge filters and power heads, which in this crazy day and age of supply chain instability, we have both of those in stock. So you can head over there. This is obviously very time relevant, but nonetheless, I would hope that if I'm doing my job right, we will keep those in stock for some time to come. In perpetuity. So, Irene, this is all about you. This hour is all about Irene Bearly. 111 subs, 111,000 subs.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's, yeah. So, I don't know. I didn't want to go into our little pre-show rant, but we'll say that. Congratulations on that. The omission, let's make the omission that you have your 2-year tenure with Aquarium Co-op is coming up in November, correct?
It is. It started in 2019.
And here's the embarrassing thing. In that entire time, Irene, you and I have never actually had a one-on-one meeting or call.
That's true.
That's either super impressive of our organization or it's super sad. I don't know which extreme that is. I feel like kind of sad because we've gotten along so well already, and like we've already talked about like tabletop gaming and video games, and all. I got a chance to show you like my painted toys and all this good stuff.
That is one of the hard parts of being a remote. I think I'm one of the few remote employees at Aquarium Co-op. But you're in the operations department. I'm kind of more in the marketing department, and so Corey is kind of the bridge between us, so we don't get to interact.
Yeah, and we could talk all about philosophical business organization and silos versus a highly cross-functional group. But just right now, like we are, as I tell my operations team, we're a very infant company. There are things that that we don't have in place that larger organizations do, and as we grow, like we'll start to try to take the best of those things and incorporate. But right now, like a lot of times it just doesn't necessarily make sense to not have it be siloed, I guess. And
yeah,
silo in the business world is a very charged term, I feel. But no, I mean, obviously, people from the outside looking in they probably don't think that we have any issues whatsoever in terms of like organizational structure, which I don't think we do. So yeah,
I think it works.
We're fine.
Good.
However, the downside is that we don't get to like have, kind of like banter and, all this fun stuff. And I let you know some inside trolls that I do on Corey and whatnot.
One day I will make it to Washington. One day I'll make it there. I'll actually visit the store for the first time. I'll get to meet all y'all in person.
You actually haven't been to the store yet?
I have never been.
Oh.
I visited Seattle before I started working for Aquarium Coop, and I did not know you guys.
Were you a fish keeper when you visited
Seattle? I think
Seattle?
this was it might have been my baby moon. So this was before I had my son, and it was actually after I had my son when he's a little toddler, like 3 years old. I had a friend, we were doing play dates, and she had a 10-gallon aquarium with glowfish in it.
Oh,
and
nice.
he would just stare at this thing, obviously, colorful fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when his birthday came up, she was like, hey, I just wanted to ask you beforehand, do you mind if we got him a betta fish? Because he always loves our fish when he comes. And she's not like, she's a very casual fish keeper. She's not into that scene at all. And I was like, ooh, let me look into like what it takes to take care of these things. And that was like my downfall. So I just went down the rabbit hole. That betta fish became my betta fish, obviously, because he was too young to take care of it. And then I just started keeping more and more fish. So he never did get that betta fish. It was the family/mom's betta fish.
Gotcha. That's we just kind of like flew right into the origin section. I like that though.
But now, like how I did that?
Nice segue. Nice segue. No, that's super responsible of you. I would have been like, of course, get me that. However, now let's play like the alternate universe game. Like, what if this friend had like a bearded dragon? And your son is obsessed with these bearded dragons. And then in this multiverse, Irene would be talking lizards. She'd be talking herps. Girl talks herps.
Very, very possible. Because when I was a kid, I loved all animals. Like we had the carnival goldfish. We had parakeets, hamsters, rabbits, turtles, and eventually a cat when I got to senior year in high school. I mean, so not all of these pets at the same time, but I just loved animals. So you're very correct. If she had offered me some other animal, I probably would have deep dove into that instead and been a reptile channel instead.
Girl talks chinchillas or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh my goodness. So we were just at our one of our state fairs here in Washington, and it's surprising to see that they still have the feeder goldfish like in a 10-gallon tank, like toss a ping pong ball and win one. It's like, how is that still a thing? And then, maybe I've said this before in an older podcast, but like I really want to know, like, okay, so of that, it's probably like the chances of you even getting a healthy fish, and even if you took it home and put it in the perfect environment, like what are really the survivability chances? But how many of those people that are going to win a goldfish potentially could turn into an aquarist, and all of a sudden we now have like a family or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever out of like the 1,000 people that play that game and won a goldfish.
They would have to be successful. I think that's what gets people out of the hobby is that even if they are well-meaning and they do actually like buy a fish from a pet store and get an aquarium, if they aren't successful and that fish dies, like there's a steep drop off. To not staying in the hobby.
It's just surprising though, like in 2021, the cliche of like insert year here and say, I'm surprised that in this day and age that we still do that. Like,
when that Free Guy trailer came out with Ryan Reynolds in it, and in that trailer there was a goldfish in a tiny bowl, and that was like still that stereotype is today that goldfish, you just keep them in a little bowl. Right? That's what people with the general public still thinks because of media, like you see it on TV, you see it on movies, and so that's what people assume that's what you're supposed to do.
So then what you're saying is that we need to go mainstream, and Corey needs to have his Keeping Up with the McElroys. And it becomes
Corey, the movie.
It becomes a Netflix sensation, and then through that consumption, the world then sees how you should actually keep, a proper 10-gallon aquarium. So my buddy, man, like I'm not joking. I'm not going to drop the L word, but there's 2 guys from high school, my 2 buddies that I was in both their weddings. They're in my weddings, that kind of stuff, like that I actually keep in contact with. One lives in Sacramento. One lives upstate, New York, outside of Manhattan. Maybe that's not upstate New York. He lives outside of Manhattan. Anyway, we're geographically distant. We still keep in touch fairly regularly, actually. He hits me up and he sends me a picture of his 10-gallon aquarium that he's setting up for his boys in their bathroom between like the 2 sinks, like the perfect spot for a 10-gallon aquarium. I'm like, cool. And he sends me the picture before there's any fish, and there's 3 artificial plants, and there's blue-black gravel, right? Like aquarium gravel. I'm like, cool, man. That's not a natural planted tank, but no problem. Like, I don't care. Get your boys into the hobby. Have a great time. That's awesome, dude. And he knows I work for Aquarium Coop. Like, he knows I go to Peru. He knows, like, I do these fish things and have been doing them for some time, and they know that I have a podcast. So at no point does he consult with me further beyond that. And then I guess my thought would be that both these guys are very intelligent guys. Like, I would think that he would do research as well. So I didn't even, like, say, hey, dude, you should probably, check these, like, hey, I'm setting up an aquarium video or blogs or anything like that. Yeah. Maybe, like, 2 weeks later, he sends me this picture of this, like, white, ultra cloudy, same tank with like 14 feeder goldfish in it.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
What did you do?
Oh no.
He's like, do you know what's going on here? And I'm just like, oh my God.
I mean,
But
I guess that's when a lot of people look if they're not the type to do a little bit of research beforehand, they're the type who will like
so
after the fact be like,
so the
"Oh, I'm in trouble,
oh my
help!"
god, what
Right?
is the hold on, let me go back again. This is making for wonderful audio podcast, but I don't care. Okay, where's his text? Let's go up here. Da 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 da. Filler words. I'll say good times for the first time or second time today. Who knows? How much do we talk
It's
about
hard
nonsense?
because you don't know when you like if somebody shows your their fish tank or you happen to be at somebody's house, it's like you don't want to push your vast amounts of knowledge on them and like overwhelm them, and
Yeah.
just be like, you're doing everything wrong, right?
So
You want them to feel good about the hobby. And so that's why it's hard to know when to speak up for
yeah.
sure.
And actually, now that I look at the picture, it looks like it's in a bathroom that actually has direct sunlight. So it looks like it's got at least two
Oh,
windows
that's
that get direct
why.
sunlight. But nonetheless, he says, I figured it was fine since they have like 100 of them in an even smaller tank at the store. That was awesome.
That's a, you know what? I mean, that's a
Oh,
legit like observation.
yeah.
Like you see that at the pet store, you're like, oh, sure, you can keep them super crayon, not knowing that they have this giant filtration system in the
I
closet
mean,
behind.
I mean, Tiger King had tigers. I mean, maybe I should be able to pull that off too, right?
Oh, no. You know what? I'm gonna shout out my friend here. I have a best friend who, she is not
Let's
into
just
fish at
let's just
all.
turn this episode into making fun of our friends
No,
doing silly things.
no, but she saw my channel. Like she's so supportive, right? So she would like watch a few episodes, here and there, right? And because of that, she actually started thinking like, hey, maybe I want to fish. But because she had seen a few of my videos, she was like, I know I'm way out of my element. Like there's just so much I don't know. And so she's invited me over to her house and be like, please, kind of like when they do those HGTV shows of
Mm-hmm.
like flip your house, that kind of thing. You call the experts over.
You're the
She's like,
expert. Nice.
please come as an expert and set up the perfect betta fish system for me and like teach me everything. And I'm like, yes, I would love to mentor you in your like fish keeping journey because that's the first step. Like her recognizing, like, wow, there's just a lot I don't know, and there's a lot that could kill this thing. So
Is
I'm
it
like,
is
cool.
I wonder if that's just like an inherent like male female difference where like you and your friend's interaction versus me and my friend's interaction, like my like
I
we're
can do
not
it myself.
like we're not asking each other questions. I'm making fun of him at his failure, and you guys are more like way supportive and like, yeah, let's just actually like have this conversation and let's be
But if she
supportive of each
hadn't
other and
said
let's
like,
be
oh, I'm
transparent and not
like she was asking me for help though. Like
mm,
I didn't like I'm always like, okay, I'll ask
yeah,
before I give the advice, right? Because nobody wants unsolicited advice, right?
s-
So I'm kind of like
for sure.
probing here. But yeah, that's happened also to another classmate that my daughter has. She had a play date back in the day, and then I noticed she was taking home these like little glass marbles. Right. And I was like, oh, telling my daughter, where'd you get this from? And then I end up talking to the mom. She's like, oh, we have this betta fish tank and we just cannot keep them alive. Like we've 3 in the row have died.
Oh
And
geez.
I was like, oh, let me see what your tank looks like. And then I see, like a typical half a gallon, like
Yeah.
full of glass marbles, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I would just love to bless you with a brand new betta fish tank.
There
Like,
you go.
I work for an aquarium co-op, and I'm just gonna like buy all this stuff for you. But do you see what the difference was? Like, I'm not coming here going like you're doing all this thing wrong. I'm like spending a lot of my own money, right? A new aquarium is because I'm not gonna buy her used stuff, right?
Sure,
A
sure.
new brand new aquarium costs a lot of money, and then so being like me being willing to give first rather than just bash her on the head, like that kind of attitude made her more receptive to
I'll
receiving.
totally bash my friend on the head. Just, come on, dude, you're better than that, man. You're no, but I did. So now Randy needs to go on the explain himself a little more. I did send him some links and some articles, and it
Okay.
did. Yeah, so we got him on the right path, and of course, like
Awesome.
if he ever needed any follow up, I'd be more than happy to jump on a call and kind of walk through it with him. But yeah, I mean that's really fun. So for my neighbor, a retired husband wife duo, I got him set up on a 40 breeder. So I had a spare 40
Nice.
breeder from $1 a gallon, 50% off sale. So I got him hooked up on that. Got him hooked up on a stand, and like he's got this like massive planted aquarium, and I think most of his plants in there are actually some from a farm overseas that we brought in just as samples. And so part of my job is like we need to test stuff out, right? And not only just dry goods, but also plants. And so he's got like Crip Wendeti green gecko, one of another green, another bronze, some hygrophilia that we'd never or the Pintafinida. Which one's that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whatever
I
that
know what it looks like.
that
Yeah.
the Pintafinida one that is just exploding in his tank is crazy. I have
Oh
to go
my
over there like
goodness.
once every 3 months and just trim the
I'm
bejesus out of it.
so jealous. My biggest tank is a 20, and I would love a 40 breeder or something bigger. So
Nice. But I got him hooked up on some 3.0s and like all this stuff. I just he hasn't given me anything for it, and it's just great that I was able to help him out because I don't think he was very successful before in keeping past
yeah.
aquariums. And then we've had some other friends come over, and we brought in some sample product, I will say, and sent them home with a bunch of stuff for their aquarium. So it's fun, like to try to pass the addiction along and be like, hey,
Yes.
here, let's help you out on this journey and make sure that you're successful
Yeah.
and see the addiction spread. And if you decide that you want to come and support us, that's cool, but no worries.
Mhm.
And actually, I think my buddy in Sacramento has actually placed a couple orders with us now, so I think he is going with he
Awesome.
actually is putting in live plants now and all that stuff, which I actually do probably need to mention something to him. I need to follow up about those about the direct sunlight because
Mm.
I totally didn't notice that before, so I'll have to follow up with him because no amount of plants or anything, if that thing is getting like 7 hours a day of Sacramento direct sunlight, that is not going to be great for his water clarity.
It's such a hard hobby because not only is there just such a steep learning curve, but if you mess up, you're like killing plants and fish. Like there's a high cost to failure versus like, we're talking about painting miniatures, right? If you mess up on a miniature, no worries, right? You clean it up, put in your little ultrasonic thing, clean off the old paint, and then you just start again, right? But there's no, like I said, that pain of losing a living fish, right? So
Exactly.
I can see why a lot of people don't stay in the hobby
Yeah, for sure,
compared to
for sure.
others.
Well, you just drive down the road and you see like the old 10-gallon aquarium on the side of the road with the
Hmm.
with the hood sticking up out of it. And it's like, oh, that's a bummer.
Craigslist all the time. Yep.
That's a bummer. But there's got to be like somebody at some point has got to do the study. But I think for what we say about social media and just kind of my criticism is regurgitated information as opposed to original content and
Mm,
experience. But nonetheless, like there is good, sound, easy to digest and access information to help people be successful in this hobby. So, in YouTube in particular, like we've got to, we've got to at least be seeing some trends of people being more successful that do get introduced into it. And hopefully, right? So like everybody at home, lockdowns, huge spike in people keeping like all the at-home hobbies, whether you're making bread, you're making cheese,
mhm.
you're getting into basket weaving, like all the things that people got into during quarantine, fish keeping being one of them. Like let's hope that those people in their boredom or whatever it is at home found good channels like Girl Talks Fish or Aquarium Co-op, and we're digesting and learning and getting good information to be successful in this hobby. So that would break my heart to hear like, oh yeah, of all the people that got into the hobby in 2019 and 2000 or 2020, 40% have quit. That would suck. That'd be sad.
Hopefully we got a, like you said, there's been, I feel like a big boost in aquarium keeping because of COVID. And so I do hope that they stay because it really is such a relaxing hobby. After a long, hard day at work, like I just love staring at the fish, staring at the plants, just kind of zoning out, and
Mm-hmm.
not listening to the news.
Yeah, no,
So,
turn that off. Yeah, don't.
world on fire.
Yeah, don't do any of that. Yeah, my 75 gallon. I'm really happy with it. I've
Mm,
it's probably gone through like 3 or 4 major iterations, but right now it's to the goldfish tank, which back when I listened to Adam Till and I up in Canada when we had our podcast talking about my fascination with goldfish and how that was the tank my girlfriend, now wife, I set up a 55-gallon fancy goldfish tank for her with like turquoise three. So like turquoise has, or 3M has this. It's like a sand insert that when you want to like change the color of concrete in a pool, I think. Like you put this stuff in whatever and like apply it, and then now you have a turquoise or a black or a purple or a red, like whatever the color is, right? So she picked out this like
interesting.
awesome turquoise color. We put like fake coral in there, fake plants. Ran like a Fluval 406 or something like that, whatever the older canister filter was. And we had a Ryukin, we had a lionhead, we had a pearl scale, we had a couple other fancy goldfish, but we loved that tank. It was so
That's
awesome.
awesome.
And now the 75-gallon is finally back to being a goldfish, or is now a goldfish tank. So I've got 2 black ranchus, one white, or like one white body but orange wen lionhead, and then
You've
a
got to send me a picture of
oh
this because that's like I
for
would
sure,
love to do that in like a basement take where
yeah,
it's cooler,
uh
That
huh.
sounds
And they're
awesome.
just little fat bodies moving around. And like the plan is to make this easy, so super understock the crap out of it, which I
Yeah.
think my own maturity as an aquarist, I have no problem having a severely understocked display tank.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
a severely understocked planted display tank, because it's just that much easier, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not going to be the 150 Malawi cichlids in a 75, which again, I understand that for those kinds of fish, you have to have a higher stocking density so they're not beating each other up, but
Hmm.
it's still cool,
The
man. Like,
maintenance.
yeah, it, it,
Yeah.
it gives them so much space to just kind of blub, 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 blub around. The only bummer right now is that a lot of really, really nice goldfish do come out of China, and the domestic
Mm.
flight or the international flights, the passenger flights in and out of China are basically non-existent, and so our ability to actually import very, very nice goldfish, so G&H, aka Aquahuna,
Yeah.
Jerry is just unable to get like the really, really nice goldfish. There's goldfish that come out of Thailand and some other Southeast Asian countries, but in his mind and his experience, some of the best ones do come out of China, and just right now,
Hmm.
he's not able to get them. So that's why, like, my dream goldfish would be a calico ranchu, so like black body with a
Ooh.
lot of white and orange spots, and just this really, really, really cool fish. In my opinion, like that's kind of like my dream goldfish.
Do you ever have my one worry? So I'd love to have a fancy goldfish tank one day, but my one worry is like swim bladder issues, because I've just seen some people online going like, "Oh, it looked like a beautiful tank to me. What's going on with this
Hmm.
fish?" So do you worry about that, or is that like you just have to get good quality goldfish from a really solid source?
I mean, these things are so inbred. I don't know if,
Mm,
short of it showing up like super skinny and like other sicknesses and diseases and whatnot. Like I hate to say, like, maybe that's just par for the course when it comes to
yeah.
goldfish, but it's definitely in the back of my mind. So I try to not overfeed. I haven't gone so far as to like do the pea thing yet, but
Mhm.
I will try to introduce more greens into their diet, and just kind of knowing that, like, no matter, I feel like there's been enough experience and things shared with ultra successful goldfish breeders and keepers that, um, maintaining good water quality and just not overfeeding, like, those are the things I'm going to shoot for,
Okay.
and
Okay.
hope that I can give these guys the best life possible, and, hope that they can live as long and natural of a life as possible without needing any like invasive procedures or anything like that.
Because I
So.
would say that's one of my fears, just because I am in front of the camera, and I'm sure Corey experiences this too. It's always like you're hesitant to introduce a wet pet, one
Mm,
that actually has a name, because if it doesn't do well and it disappears one day, like people ask, and then the judgment comes. So that's why I'm always like very careful about. Maybe I'll just go with a hardier species,
yeah,
right?
I don't know. I would hope though that people, like reasonable people, would say that is an aspect of this hobby. Like,
Yes.
it's not like a dog. Like the veterinary care, those things don't. They exist to an extent, but not nearly to the same extent as dogs and cats and horses and all these other things that you can have as a terrestrial pet. So, losing a fish is a part of this hobby. Like,
Mhm.
maybe once every couple weeks, there will be something dead in my fish room, right?
Mhm.
In an otherwise ultra perfect healthy tank, something will die, because you just don't know what's going on with a particular fish. Maybe it just got bullied. I don't know, like, whatever the reason is. So I would hope that you could get that pet, and in the event of, the mortality, it's, to me, it then becomes like, are you the type of YouTuber that's going to sensationalize the crap out of that
Mm.
and go clickbaity, or are you just going to be like, look, this is what happened. Let's move on, and here's this other thing I'm going to talk about or show you.
My my failures basically become good lesson learned
100%,
videos
yeah.
for people.
Yeah, 100%. When it's like, oh my god, something died every week, and it's like, what?
Mhm. Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that. So, all right, origin story. You got into fish keeping because your friend, could have been in the multiverse. It could have been chinchillas or ferrets or,
Parakeets,
box of
whatever.
parakeets. How did your hobby then progress from there, right? So I guess, what was that first tank? Describe that a little bit more, and then what does the progression look like?
So basically, I learned that betta fish could be in a community tank. I started off too small, so then I was like, oh, okay. Basically, I found out through experience hard way that it was too small.
How
So I
small?
just have
How
the
small is too
bettas for my
small?
3.5 gallons.
Okay.
So I found out the internet is not always right, because there's just so many people who are like, yes, you can do it. No, you can't. Right. And I was clearly looking for the answer I wanted.
Can
Right.
can you
So that was
describe
fun.
that 3.5 gallon setup for us?
That was a betta and probably like 3 neon tetras.
Okay.
The filter was way too fast. That was another thing I didn't realize. The default kit one that comes with it, right? So after that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do the 3.5 gallon for the betta fish. And then after that, I just had to have more fish, right? So the betta just stayed there, and then I was like, I'd seen all these beautiful aquascapes, right? But I wasn't confident enough to do planted tanks yet. So I basically bought a 20-gallon high, and I tried to buy the most natural looking fake green plants I could. And at the time, National Geographic had a fake plant line. So I tried to aquascape basically using fake plants. And that was my first community tank. It had albino cories in it, the neon tetras, and in the middle, and I had the frittata rainbow fish. So by then I was really researching, and I was starting to go to local fish stores. So that was up. It first started off as hatchet fish. And that's when I had my first bout of ick. So then I learned about quarantining property. They died from ick, but then I was able to, the rest of them survived, and I was able to replace them with the frittata rainbow fish.
So so let's go chicken and the egg. Are you researching first, discovering species that you like and then searching them out, or are you going to local stores, seeing what they have, researching those, and then buying them?
I think I was doing a lot of online research, and that's how I knew I wanted something on the bottom level, the middle level, and the top. And then after that, I would research. So that's when I started my Excel spreadsheet.
Yes, you're such a nerd. Yes.
And I would have the columns for like, what's the max size of the fish? What's the minimum tank size? How many do you need in a school? The temperatures, like I had everything plotted out. And then basically I would start rearranging them. I used a lot of, aqadvisor.com, they would kind of help you figure out roughly a calculator of whether you were overstocked or not. And then I would use PowerPoint, and I would take a picture of the fish from and then just copy paste it roughly what size I thought it would be compared to my tank. And then I would put like, okay, I've got 6 of these cories on the bottom. How many, what would it look like if I had the neon tetras in there? And then basically I kind of plotted out.
You did your own augmented reality for an aquarium. That is
basically
fantastic. That is so cool. Oh,
so yes,
goodness.
I tend to be that person that researches first, and when I go to the fish store, I know exactly what I want. Oftentimes I will call or message the fish store going, do you have this fish? If they don't, I don't even show up, right? But when they do have that fish, I go in, and then that's when I do more of my exploring of like, oh, look at this. I've never seen this variety of German blue ram before, or I've never seen this variety of whatever before. And so I do get to see more species that way. But yeah, I hate shopping. And so that's why I like to be like very like targeted. Like, okay, I have to go to the store. I'm going to do as much research as possible. Go in, get out. That's my usual deal.
That's awesome that you're so researched up front, which, on the scale of like super researched or not researched at all, like you are biasing on the probably safer side, right? For the better side for you and the fish. So
yeah, I don't get that whole like, oh, I went in there and I came back with some surprise fish. Like because I don't also have the room, right? People have fish rooms, so they have usually plenty of room to buy a cool fish that they saw in an auction or at a fish store. But for me, because I'm so limited in space, kind of willingly, a lot of our house is taken up by my husband's games. And so I get some areas, but I'm just kind of naturally a little more minimalistic. And so I have found, at least right now in this season of my life with like younger kids, like 3 tanks is like a good number for me.
Or
any more than that, it gets so hard.
Hear me out.
Oh no.
Fish room with auto water change, and you could damn near go as many tanks as you want.
So
you just water change your way through it. Just power water change through it.
My husband and I have been kind of arguing over how we want to allocate the space in our basement, because that would be a good place, right, to set up like a rack or something like that. But he has a lot of stuff too. So we're currently like parsing through like, okay, I get this corner because it's unfinished, right? So it's like, I get this corner, you get that corner. Where would we install like a utility sink so I could do water changes? Like we are talking about that, but yeah, we'll see. It's a long time.
I'm so happy that I have a female aquarist who can then who is representing the multiple tank syndrome, but from the female part of the relationship, right? And it's not always like Randy and a dude talking about like their wives and whatnot, like, which my wife shows me so much grace and lets me get away with a lot of crap. So, she's awesome, super amazing. But I'm glad that now it's, oh yeah, me and Irene, who's a gal, she is representing Randy's side in the relationship. as a female.
Auto water changes would be a definite
Hmm.
game changer. Like that's what probably would make my, because right now it's a time limitation. I feel like
Yes.
not necessarily space or money per se, but just I've gotta like work and then I gotta cook and then take care of the kids. They've got homework, and obviously my husband is helping out with that, but it's just they take a lot of attention
Oh,
right now.
100%.
So
100%. Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I mean, in my situation, we have no like extended family. So it's just us. Like
mm,
there's no reprieve from the grandparents coming over to watch the kids for like an hour or anything. It's just, it's all on my wife and I. And, no, that's our life that we chose and we love it. But you've got to sacrifice here and there on like the hobbies.
yeah.
And, Robert just had his little girl. I think she's maybe like 3 weeks now, but, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to be like, everything changes. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to experience things on your own. And so there's no amount of like me telling you something is going to do anything. And not that he was necessarily soliciting, but the one thing I did tell him was that you really find out what your true passions are. When you have
Mm,
such limited time because you're dedicating so much to your work and to your family, the extra time, the extra curricular time you have, you truly find out that, oh yeah, Netflix, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like,
right. Right.
taking care of this fish room or setting up a display tank, like the Aquarius hobby, like that's what truly matters. And then now it's kind of competing with that and like Warhammer, but whatnot. Like, you drop all of these extra things and
Yes.
you really hone in and figure out like what your true hobbies are, your true passions. Because 1 hour, right, in the evening when your kids are in bed, like if
Yes.
you've got like the 1 hour, that is the most precious 1 hour ever. And lately, I have found that I've just been, I don't know what it was about this summer, but I've just like, once the kids go down, I'm like looking at just random like YouTube nonsense, like
Uh-huh.
watching a channel that just shows boats going through this choppy part of water, like in a Florida inlet. Like, what am I doing? Like, why am I watching these boats? I'm like, no more phone, no more phone. Go do some stuff.
Yeah.
Go feed some
Yeah.
brine
Yeah.
shrimp. Go do a little bit more tank maintenance than you normally would. So.
Yeah.
Yes, but and actually, what's super fun, and I think how you and I can kind of connect in this interview as well is just that the exposure to the kids to the hobby,
Mm-hmm.
and now my oldest boy Rowan is 4, going on 5 here pretty soon, but he helps me. He actually started doing some tank maintenance. Like
Oh my
he
goodness.
wanted to do gravel vacuuming in the discus tank because we've never actually shown this in my room, or I don't even know if we've actually shown it in videos of Dean's fish room, but we have this. Dean and I both employ, and I'm sure many other people do this. I'm not trying to say that Dean's the creator of it or anything. I'm certainly an imitator, but it is a basically a long tube to a bucket, and so you hook up your gravel vac to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can gravel vac all of the tanks in your fish room, and they all gravel vac to one bucket. And from that
Mm-hmm.
bucket, you then have a sump pump that with a
Yes.
float switch. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what my boy, he sees me do a lot of times. So I'm like going
Ah.
around gravel vacuuming, and when you're done with one tank, you crimp one end, hold it up, move to the next tank, let a little bit go
Nice.
because you're kind of paranoid to get cross water contamination.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you just keep doing that. And with bare bottom tanks, it's pretty easy. There's no extra gravel to suck up or anything. And so he finally he wanted to do the discus tank, so he gets up on the little step stool and he takes his shirt off because he has to like reach into the tank too
Oh,
much, and
poor
so
guy.
he's in there, just gravel vacking away, sucking up all the what little mold will build up in that tank, because I try to do that one at least once a week, or my discus
Mm-hmm.
tank. Well, most of my tanks I try to do at least once or twice a week, but yeah. So now he's kind of graduated to that. So at first it was feeding, right?
Uh-huh.
Like what the boys want to feed all the time, and now he
Yes.
wants to do some tank maintenance, and now I let them shoot the pipettes of brine shrimp. So as I hatch out Aquarium Co-op
Okay.
brine shrimp, which are
Yes, of
amazing.
course. Only the best.
Only the best, only the best. So he shoots those little pipettes into the various tanks that I tell him to, and then now he wants to help actually make it, right? So now he knows that
Oh.
it's the 1 scoop of brine shrimp. He knows it's the 1 scoop of the Fritz RPM salt
Yeah.
slash
Yeah.
Aquarium Co-op brine shrimp salt. And so he helps me make them. He's not doing like the airline or anything overly advanced. He's just doing the dumps right now. But
Yes.
now he's like learning about, you take the brine shrimp eggs, mix them with basically ocean salt water, and
Uh-huh.
they'll hatch 2 days later, right? So he's getting this exposure to this cycle, which how many kids get an opportunity to kind of do that in their fish room,
Mm-hmm.
or in a fish room in general.
I should get my kids more involved. Right now, they're mainly handling the family dog, which is bigger, right, and easier for them to handle, and also our leopard gecko too. So
Oh, nice.
that one takes live insects, and I'm like, yeah, you can handle that. And they think it's really cool, right? Like holding up the little wiggly worm, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, cool, you handle that. But yeah, I should get them more involved. I tend to, now that I really think about it, I do tend to feed them when they're not around because I don't know. I just find it really relaxing. It's kind of like me time in
Mm-hmm.
a way. And then when I do tank maintenance, usually they're just like off running around. But I should get
Yeah.
them more involved because they're definitely
Well,
interested.
there's that fine line to walk of exposing them to it and then
Mhm.
like forcing them to it so it turns into something that like a chore and they don't like it, right? So
Right.
for this, it's this is not the family business, right? Like Randy's Fish Room is not the family farm that puts food on the table per se.
Right.
So they can engage with it as they want to. Where if I was a dairy farmer, I would probably have them like doing all the dairy farming things because
Yes.
this is our livelihood.
Right.
Puts milk in the glass. But yeah, they're just at that age where they want to do everything by themselves. They want to engage and participate. And so yeah, if you want to come feed, by all means. Oh, geez, you put 17 too many pieces of
That's
food in
my
there. Like
fear.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm too much of a control freak. Maybe that's why I haven't gotten
Yeah.
them involved because I'm just like, and I'm seeing the wobbly hand, like
Yeah.
trying to put the fish root in. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So it's a little more difficult with flake, but pellets, just like setting the pellets out, like the larger the better, like the extreme sinking wafers. So just
Yeah, the
putting
wafers, yeah.
putting those out in front of the tank. My son has a 10-gallon tank in his room, so taking the shrimp pellets, putting the shrimp pellets out, using the extreme betta scoop to actually because I think
nice.
we're feeding that tank nano right now. So just giving him the scoop and letting him do the scoop on his own. But no, there have been a fair share of like, oh my God, you just dumped like a week's worth of food in there. Oh, geez, we're gonna have to gravel back that one.
I have accidentally done that before, and it was a disaster. I was just like, "Oh my goodness, it's for real that ammonia nitrite spike." I was like, "Oh, I thought I got it all out, and like clearly didn't." So
See, auto water change, you can just bust out your phone and
I
then
know.
engage that auto water change via your app from the luxury of your couch and just let that
Randy's
thing run for
really
an hour.
selling this to me. I love it. I love it.
Well, it's God, it's sad. I guess that's just my past life as a salesperson that just keeps creeping into me. That when I hear objections, I immediately come up with resolutions to those objections. And how can we secure this deal, Irene? How can we make this happen? How can we get the auto water change set up in your house today? The one,
You know what? I got to do more research. That's what my answer would be. I always have to do more research.
Nice. Well, I'll shoot over some videos for you of fish room tours
you.
and whatnot, and how to set up your fish room. So no problem. I can help you on that journey. The one maybe I've shared this before, but the one thing I learned with switching over from the manual like clicky dial sprinkler timer to run
Okay.
the solenoids for the auto water change, moving to the more high tech app Bluetooth one, is
Yeah.
that those things have smart features like drought protection, and they'll actually track your local weather. So
Okay.
I had to spend like an hour researching how to bypass those things to just
Yeah.
get it to run. Because one day I'm
Yeah.
like, man, has this tank has this kicked off recently for this particular like rack? And sure enough, I
Yeah.
look it up and it's like, your weather is, you're raining this whole entire week. So we've, it's not on. So I had to disable those for the various zones. So that's a pro tip for anybody that's going to go auto water
Disable
change.
all eco-friendly
Yes, yes,
automations.
yes. And I don't know how things are in your neck of the woods in Colorado, but Western Washington, we have all the water, so I can run water changes and not be sad. If I still lived in San Diego, I would be super sad at doing water changes because, yeah.
I think we're pretty good. I think Colorado actually sells water to California.
Nice.
So I think
Nice.
we're good.
Who was it? I think it was Captain Kirk. He had come up with an idea of like William Shatner. I think a couple years ago, William Shatner had this like we need to build a pipeline from Western Washington to California.
Oh, true, right?
Do you remember that?
You guys have all that water. No, I don't remember that, but it's
William
a good
Shatner
idea.
water pipeline. Yes, this is totally a thing. I'm looking this up.
Share the wealth with the poor fish keepers in California.
Here we go. USA Today, William Shatner's fix for California drought, a pipeline to Seattle, April 21st, 2015. I'm not crazy. There we go.
Good memory.
There we go. When do I get my own like sidekick to help me pull things up on Google?
That's right. The big podcast.
Billy
and all
Bob.
that. They always have that.
Billy Bob, pull that up. Come on, Billy Bob. Help me out here. Help out your host.
They'd have
Okay.
to know a lot about fish though to pull up the stuff we do though. Like they'd have to know all the jargon and all the crazy stuff.
I love one of my favorite things is looking up Google Earth, Google Maps of when
Ooh.
people are like, oh yeah, this Western African fish is found in this lake, and it's like pulling it up and zooming in and seeing it.
Oh,
Or
cool.
when I talked to Joe Ferdenzi about where the first where Dr. Endler had collected endlers from in Venezuela, Lagos
Uh-huh.
de Patos, so the duck lake, like actually pulling that up and like saying, oh wow, that's super cool, or like, oh, it
That's
was here, but
awesome.
now there's like all this, whenever this satellite
Oh,
photo was taken, there's now all this human development that's encroached in the last 3 or 4 decades or whatever it's been.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I do enjoy me some Google mapping or Google Earth / mapping and whatnot.
I am not good at geography, so I should probably start that habit too.
So what is the state then of your fish collection right now? I know you said you were a little bit on the smaller side, but what kind of give us a rundown of your current setup?
I am the lover of all things nano, so I've got a 5 gallon planted betta tank. Then I got a 10 gallon breeding tank, which right now I'm trying to breed pygmy Corydoras. So
Nice.
that's the only fish in there. And then of course has plants in it. And then I still have that same 20 gallon high community tank that has gone through many, many iterations. And so right now it's got the dwarf red coral platies or teacup platies, like some people like to call them. My centerpiece fish is a powder blue dwarf gourami,
Nice.
and then a bazillion like cleanup crew. So mono shrimp, hillstream loaches, autosynclus catfish, and then for my son, he wanted some coolie loaches in there. So I was like, all
Nice.
right, for you. Oh, and then I am traditionally a hater of all things snail, but I do have our first mystery snail, Sunstreaker, and so she is gorgeous yellow.
Sunstreaker. That's like
Yeah.
an
Oh,
Avatar, the like that last Airbender kind of name, like
these are
Sunstreaker, just superhero.
we love to name them all geek names, a lot of Transformers names, because my husband's into that. And so we've got Sonic the Hedgehog, or Sonic is the blue betta fish. Sunstreaker is a Transformer. Unicron is a Transformer as well. He's the
He's the
powder
like,
blue,
isn't he
the
like the
Gourami.
world? Isn't
Yes,
he's like the
he's the world
world?
thief. So
Okay.
he's the tank boss, right? So I had to give him this like mighty, giant, supreme ruler kind of name.
Oh
So
man, you are
and
crushing
he
me on
is kind
Transformer
of
knowledge.
blue and orange too, just like the powder blue dwarf gourami.
That's
So
awesome. Sunstreaker is a legit Transformer. I like
it
that.
is. It is.
Super cool. All right. Let's see here. Where were we gonna go with? Okay, so walk me through. Let's get some like practical, tangible advice here. So your breeding
Mhm.
setup, you're trying to breed pygmy cories, right?
Yeah.
So can you walk me through like what have you done so far? What have you tried? What are some lessons learned? How are you doing success wise? Let's kind of
So
unpack
I'm
that.
basically trying to go for the whole like established, super mature aquarium. Some people have been successful breeding them at higher pH, which is kind of what my natural water is. But
How
most
high?
of the times they're
How high is that?
out the tap, it's probably 8.0, 8.2, and then
Dang.
by the time it relaxes a little bit, maybe 7.8.
Okay.
But I've been adding some catappa leaves. They kind of like the dimmer light. They are pretty shy, but they've gotten used to me. I've got the kind of pile of rocks, in one corner with some driftwood coming out, and then that pile of rocks has like tons of narrowleaf java fern coming out of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a little island setup, but that way I figure if they're already fried, then kind of hide in the rocks, hide in that crazy mass. I also have a ton of floating plants up top, but they also like to I like to feed them where on the other side on the left side of the tank, there's a lot of dwarf Sagittarius, kind of just like wild grass look. So yeah, the key things that people mention are doing the giant water changes that are slightly cooler, a few degrees to kind of trigger, pretending it's the rainy season, right? Feeding them really well. So trying to do the baby brine shrimp, a lot of rapashi, you're just constantly offering them food, even easy fry and small fish food.
Mm-hmm.
Aquarium Cup has like just lots of good, nutritious food. What else? Yeah, that's kind of the tactics. I've been looking on the forums actually, the Aquarium
Nice.
Co-op forum, and somebody was telling how they successfully bred their pygmy cories. So I've kind of been following their guidelines.
Now, have you been posting your breeding experience for those that were like, "Oh man, I would love to get some real-time updates on
I
Irene's."
haven't. I'm kind of
Oh,
waiting for,
you got to share the
eggs.
journey. So, are you like me in that you only want to share when it's successful, so you don't feel like a goofball?
Yeah, because if it's gonna take like 6 months,
Yeah.
whatever. Oh,
And
and then obviously having enough cories, right? So that's key to breeding as well.
so, when did you start this pygmy cory breeding project, and how many
Hmm.
actually are in the group?
sometime this year. I can't remember. I started off with 9. It was a whole adventure. It was crazy. So I saw the pygmies, and it was one of the times I did go to the fish store, and I had a plan to just get Unicron, the dwarf gourami, and I saw these pygmies, and I was like, I just have to breed them. And there was just like a bazillion of them in this tank, and so I got a bunch of them, took them home, put them in quarantine, right, and then less than 24 hours, one of them's belly up.
Oh boy.
24 hours later, belly up. 24 hours later, 2 more belly up. I'm like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? I'm like frantically measuring. This was a like somewhat established quarantine take. So I had like a bazillion platyfry in there earlier. And like they were living in there, they grew up in there. Like, it's an established sponge, right? And everything. So finally which I should have done earlier, I call the fish store and I'm like, hey, like I was thinking maybe they got a bad batch, right? So I was like, are any of your pygmies going bad? And they're like, nope, they're fine. And I was like, oh my goodness. Turns out, remember I mentioned my higher pH. Turns out they're a local fish store, right? So their pH is kind of similar to mine-ish, but they were artificially buffering it down to 6.4, and they did not mark it on the tank. And it was my fault, right? I always do my research beforehand, and then I go in and out, right? So I don't talk to the store employees a lot and be like, what are you feeding them? Like I didn't do my research in the store and being like, hey, is there anything I should know about this?
That seems like such a you should be sharing that as the store.
But they were super, if you think about it, like COVID times, you don't have a lot of employees, you're limiting the number, like you're trying to get people in and out really fast. I saw, and it was a weekend too, right? When you go on weekends, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So they're trying to help as many people as possible. And I was trying to be unfussy, right? Not fussy at all. And so they probably didn't get a chance, or they didn't think, you know what I mean? Like, because they have so many tanks. Who knows how many of them they've got special conditions on them. So anyways,
so
I would personally just write it on the tank. So
well, that's what I'm saying. So like as a lean operations guy, I'd be like, all right, let's poke yoke this thing. How can we make it as visually easy as possible for people to like not make a mistake? And that would be, if you're going to do anything super outside of the ordinary, which dropping your pH by like
6.4.
And again, folks that don't know, there's a lot of people do, but the logarithmic scale, right? It's like Richter scale. It's not just like an equal step down, like it's in magnifolds of magnitudes of 10, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge. Like that's a huge difference. And to not willingly share that or display it on the tank, because I think that at most all we do is just our local water plus crushed coral is anything that we do in our store. So
been shopping there for years. I have never had any issues with any of their fish. I so trust them, and I think they're just super busy. Who knows when they got those fish in too, but I think they realized too that, these are wild caught. They're doing a lot better when we lower the pH for them. And so I just chalk it up to, we all make mistakes, right? So fair. I gave, oh well.
So lesson learned though, lesson learned. Did they learn from this? Did they put in corrective action so that future instances with other customers, this would be avoided?
I haven't talked to them since after the initial troubleshooting set. And so, after that experience, so they basically all ended up passing away. And I'm not going to go into the whole long story of their refund policy and everything.
Sure.
People ask me questions about that. But anyways, I decided I wanted to order tank raised Corydoras. And this time I was like real sure. I was like, okay, here's my pH. Here's my water parameters. Are your fish from Maryland going to survive? And I think it was like Aquatic Life Farms, something like that. Anyways, Frank was real great. He sent them to me.
Good job, Frank.
And so I ended up, and then some of them didn't make it all the way through shipping just because one of the bags leaked, but he was really good about packaging them in smaller bags. So only one of the small bags leaked. So all the rest arrived. I ended up having 9, and then they were still a little shy. So I went to the fish store and I saw a little bag of 4 pygmies just floating. And I'm like, hey, what's up with that bag? And he was like, oh, another, owner, I guess, brought them back because she only had 4. They were too shy. And I was like, I'll take them. So currently I have 13. They're all doing great. Very, very happy, very fat. So I'm expectantly looking forward to them breeding soon.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I can kind of share a little bit of my Corydoras breeding journey right now.
Yes, please.
And so with the Scleromastix barbatus, right? So this was the tank that I initially got the group. I separated them like 6 and 6 in 2 different 20 highs. The only difference was the substrate because I wanted to see if like pea gravel made a difference with like more of a sandy kind of gravel because, who knows? Maybe that's a difference. Let's have a little experiment here. I've got the real estate to do that. Verifying Microsoft Outlook. We don't want to do that. Don't you mess up this stream, Outlook. Get out of here. Yeah. So, yes. So I do that. Zero breeding activity for like a year, and I'm feeding these things really, really well. Maybe a little bit less than a year, and then I decide I end up freeing up one of my 40 breeders that I basically grew some angel fry out from like I don't know, like from eggs to like half dollar size. So I grew out like
Awesome.
chonky angelfish, and I was taking Robert angelfish. He was just swimming in my angelfish forever. It was it was hilarious. And so I freed up that 40 breeder. So I went ahead and put some substrate in there, put some plants, and then I moved the two separate groups and recombined them back into one group. And sure enough,
Yeah.
within like a week or two, I had breeding activity. I had eggs on the glass, and so then it's okay. So I got them spawning. Now it's the transitioning to the egg phase, right? Like getting those eggs out and being successful with those. And so I had like the first batch, I did okay in the egg tumbler, and I think I had a couple fry, but then they ended up
Egg
dying.
tumbler,
Yeah,
nice.
so
Okay.
I egg tumbled them, and then a couple other batches after that, I was doing egg tumbler, and it just wasn't being successful. And I would put them in a
Okay.
different tank. I'd keep them in their original tank, just to kind of keep the water the same, and just wasn't having success. They were fungusing, and some of this could be that they weren't fertilized potentially, but
Mm.
I ended up switching to using the Aquarium Coop, our specimen container, our catch cup. And so I would hang that on the outside with a couple drops of methylene blue.
Yeah.
And I think the first one I did of that, it ended up being successful. So I got
Nice.
maybe of the 12 eggs that I was able to get, I think I got maybe like 6 or 7 or 8 actual fry. And so I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. So every 2 days I'm doing water changes on this little small amount of water. I've got an air stone in there with very, very little amounts of, air bubbles. I just need enough to oxygenate, but not enough to like make it super crazy turbulent in there. And they end up growing up, and I get a second clutch. Second clutch doesn't do well. Third clutch does do well. And so now I've got these 2 little groups going on these little on 2 specimen containers hanging on the outside of a 40 breeder. Everything is great. And then I move them to larger 10-gallon grow outs. And I've actually had some issues before moving cories, moving guppies to larger grow out tanks and them dying.
Interesting.
So
Huh.
I don't know what's happening
Okay.
there. Somebody else has shared that about them moving guppy fry to a grow out tank and then them not making the transition well. So I was
Okay.
very, very cautious. Like they're doing well in these little specimen containers, but I moved them to the 10 gallons and they survive, right? And so now it's been like a month or two and I'm just feeding them brine shrimp every single day.
Yeah.
And more recently, a couple weeks ago, actually, no, before Peru, I was looking in there on the first group that was successful that had that the fry are like pretty good size now. And I'm looking and I'm like, why do they look a little funny? And their pectoral fins are not developed. So they either,
Interesting.
if they do have pectoral, they're like these little nubs, or they don't have any nubs at all. And I'm like heartbroken at this point. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what
Oh.
happened? Because I've been sharing it on the forum. And this is back to that whole like sharing
Yes.
something before you're super successful. And I do need to give the forum post an update on this. But yeah, like they're that first group, I don't think any of them have developed pectoral fins. Everything else on the fish,
Is it genetic? Did you look at any of the parents to see
no,
if
they're
they have an
fine.
issue?
No, they're fine. They're perfectly healthy. Barbados from a very reputable wholesaler of ours. And
Because that happened with my first, the albino Corys that I
oh,
bred. It was a genetic issue. I didn't realize the mom had was kind of blind in one eye, basically, and I thought it was just from an injury, like, some
mm-hmm.
little Corydoras spike went into her eye or something like that. It was genetic, and her babies came out with
Oh,
either 1 blind eye or sometimes 2 blind
oh,
eyes, and I was like,
wow.
"Oh, okay, now I know, do not breed this one."
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
that's why I was curious
yeah.
about
So
what could have happened.
on leveraging my time and relationship with Dean. So we're in Peru, and I think I had this conversation with him when he and I are like in the hot tub at the hotel, and I'm like, Dean, here's what's going on with my Barbados. What do you think? And he's like, that's actually happened to me before. And he said that to his knowledge, it's actually like a fungus. So early stage
Oh.
development, he says that it could be a fungus that's actually causing those to not develop or to eat away or whatever it is. But genetically, though, like the parents, they're all like normal, healthy looking fish with fully developed fins and all that stuff. And in the second younger group, there are some that have developed pectoral fins. So it does look
Okay.
like, I can at least get some that are that will develop properly. So then it's okay. If my method of being able to actually hatch these eggs was successful, but long term or even like in that what I think is success, I'm having this fungus, bacteria, whatever it is. Like
Mm.
how do I
Yeah.
keep the thing that works to hatch them, but do something so that it's not, it's not causing this fungus issue to happen. So I don't know. Maybe I need
Did
to.
Dean say anything? Like, what did he recommend trying next time?
I can't remember actually. I think I was too distracted by the pool or something. I don't know. But I know I do need to follow up with him though and say like what can we do? One idea. I want to like pull that guy into my aquarium or my fish room and like lock him in there and be like, all right, Dean, help me out with this discus breeding, because that's something else where that's like I don't know, probably 25% Randy like isn't trying super hard with them, but like 75% like I just think I need some more guiding hands to help me with these setups.
Yeah.
And I've only recently started like I fabricated this little like mesh screen to actually like protect the eggs from the parents, because one of the big problems I have right now is just the parents are constantly
Yes.
crushing the eggs, and I'm like, you guys are breeding. I'll eventually give you some time later, but I think I want to revisit the discus breeding and actually like really give it more effort to see if I can actually get some successful hatches and clutches. And if you've heard my story before, my tiger turquoise, their first time laying eggs actually ended up hatching and the fry grew out. I don't know if it was their first time, but nonetheless, a clutch was successful. They grew out a ton of them, and the parents were feeding them off their side, and everything was great for like a week and a half. I'm feeding baby brine shrimp now at this point. They're starting to get their shape, and everything is awesome, right? The parents go and lay eggs. I'm like, okay, I should probably move the fry to a different tank. I didn't have another tank ready up to that temperature, so I get a 10-gallon ready. I put the heater in there, and the next day when I get home from work, I'm like, okay, this is the day I'm going to move the fry. Well, guess what? The parents ate the fry.
Oh my goodness.
And so like when I was super close to being successful with discus, like at a very early stage of like, oh my God, like this is one of the first true attempts of me like, oh yeah, let's like actually raise these discus up and breed them. And yeah, the parents crushed them. And then from that point forward, I have been cursed.
Oh my goodness.
I have been
Do they
cursed.
keep eating their eggs or the fry?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is
Yeah. That
no.
parent group. So I have 3 established breeding discus. I have 2 groups of 2 pairs of tiger turquoise that lay eggs that spawn, and one of which is that group that ate their fry. And then I've got blue diamonds. I have blue diamonds that will lay, but they will eventually eat their fry as well. My red melons might actually just end up being 2 girls or 2 boys that don't beat each other up. We'll see about that. And I for sure in the group of wild discus, I for sure at least have a pair in there somewhere. I just need to pull another 2 tiger turquoise out of that tank, and actually I just want it to be go back to being a pure wild discus 40 breeder.
Do you think you would ever pull the eggs? Like I think Dean talks
I've
about
tried, but I just feel so like I need to just come up with a better way, because what the pro discus breeders do, like when Corey and I went to Dragon Discus, is they'll take so you have the discus the breeding cone, right?
Yes.
That's tapered up towards the top. They'll actually take stainless steel or even galvanized steel, and they make these little cages around it. And the whole point there being that the parents can see, they can integrate, they can like sensory, they can interact with the eggs except for touching, and they can't eat them. And then as they turn to wigglers, and then as the fry become free swimming, the parents are familiar with them, but they never had a chance to actually eat them. And so many there were hundreds of those cages like just on racks, not in use, and like that's clearly something that they do. So one of the things that I tried was I had some spare green, what is that, like needlepoint kind of
craft mesh? That's what I usually call it. Yeah,
green craft mesh, right? And so I cut 2 holes in it, and I took Ziss suction cups, because those things are freaking the best, and I put those in there. My thought was the discus should be able to see and smell and sense their eggs, and this was that first tiger turquoise group. And so I put the mesh up against the wall where they had laid the eggs, because these discus don't lay on the cone. They're hardcore. They're all about laying on the Ziss in the back. They're all about on the heater in the
everywhere
back. Everywhere but, yes. And on the side. They like the sidewall a lot. So I put it over that, right? And so there's still a good 1/4 inch between that mesh and the eggs. I come back in an hour later, and the male is beating the crap out of the female. Has never done that before. So I think they actually could not see them and sense them. And he's like, you ate the eggs. And so he's like beating her up. So I took that off. I immediately took that off. And then they went back to normal, and then like a day later they ate the eggs. So
so you've got your new your next DIY project was you got to make the same kind of mesh screen thing that you
Something.
saw
Yeah.
at
So
that
I
farm.
need to go around. Well, I need to go around Home Depot and see like what other kinds of things that are going to be, large enough for them to see, but not large enough where
Yeah,
they can actually get their mouth in
go
there. And then
through.
how do I affix it to the side of a glass aquarium? Because my discus do, and the other group does this as well. They will breed on the glass as opposed to the cone. Where I think the blue diamonds actually do. I think they actually have the few times that they have spawned, they will spawn on the cone.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can do it, Randy. I believe in you. And then you can post everything on the forum once you're successful.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Once I'm successful, yes.
After the fact.
And then I can finally submit for my Breeders' Award points, the breeding
Mm,
discus, which that's kind of the season that I'm in right now as a fish keeper. Is
yeah.
getting up to, and part of this is just to troll Dean and be like, "Hey, dude. I mean, it's not that
It's
hard."
master breeder
I'm like,
Randy.
if it is clearly, if they gave it to me, it's not that hard, right? Like,
I am so bad about filling out those sheets, and I need to like back fill out them. But like, since fish clubs haven't met in quite a while, at least
hmm
ours hasn't, it's just kind of I forget about it, right? Because I'm not going there once a month and being like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I need to fill out my sheet, for whatever. So and plus, like you said, with the auto water change system, I could speed up that process of breeding even more fish.
So what? So then to kind of circle back to the pygmy cories. So right now you're kind of in the holding pattern of give them the good water quality.
Yeah.
We don't have to chase that low pH, right? Because they came from a
No.
water source that was pretty
Right.
similar to what you currently have out of the
Yeah.
tap. You're throwing some catappa leaves in there, and right now
Mhm.
it's just hold steady, feed them real well, and just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm
Just be
kind of
patient and let them run their course.
I do need to start doing the live baby brine shrimp again. I was doing that every single day when I was trying to breed epistogrammas, which I had the same problem of them eating their eggs all the time.
Mm.
And so I need to get back into that. But our house has just been under a lot of construction recently. And so a lot of our stuff that's normally in the bathroom in the basement is all out in the living area.
Ah.
And so I'm like, I don't have any space to, but now things have calmed down again. So I've got the Zis brine shrimp hatchery. I've got all my stuff, so I just need to start that process again. I've
Which
been
is
feeding mostly frozen,
which is
so
an amazing way to hatch baby brine
yeah,
shrimp.
it
That
is.
thing.
It's really nice, and my hands are actually small enough I can go underneath and put a little collection cup just for the brine
Yeah,
shrimps.
unlike my mutant hands apparently.
I've heard
But
stories.
you need to like hanging it though. When you get that fish room, Irene, with the auto water
Yeah,
change
if
system,
I had, yeah,
and you start hanging that brine shrimp hatchery, that's the bee's knees right there. So
yeah,
let's
I
ask you
need
this
some.
question: which way do you aerate? Do you aerate through the nozzle underneath, or do you go up through the lid?
I did through the lid and use that rigid airline tubing they provided.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's what I do.
Try going in the nozzle down below. I think
What?
that's the move. Like totally. I don't know why Corey and Dean go from the top. Like you got to try. It's just it perfectly fits airline tubing, and you get like you don't like there's no rigid airline tube to like place or anything. You just run it in
Uh-huh.
there. Turn the valve on. Obviously, you've got your air pressure running, and then it just
Yeah.
does this excellent job of aerating. I find it to be
Oh
perfect.
my goodness.
And
I have
it's
never thought. So then when you drain, you just pull out the airline
yep.
and then go
So
straight out.
So
Okay.
you shut it down, right? You shut that valve down,
Yeah.
and that you let it settle for I don't know 5 to 10 minutes. You got your little light source on there, which I've actually learned for me don't do direct light source. I actually do indirect light underneath the bottom, so
Oh,
that way
interesting.
there's less light hitting everywhere, and I
Okay.
find that
Okay.
that causes more concentration at the bottom, with
Okay.
just having like the light shining off something underneath
Okay.
the hatcher.
I'll
Yeah,
try that.
so you let it all settle, and then you open your valve up, and then
And then drain.
yeah,
Oh
and
my
be,
goodness.
and
I'm game changer. I'm totally
yeah.
trying that.
I
You
mean,
heard it here first, everyone.
it's one less thing. It's one less thing to have to clean.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It
And
does kind of get
yeah,
gunky. Yeah.
and in your setup though, because I've got all my airlines up above, right in a loop. In the event of power outage, like always, make sure you've got your
Yeah.
airline up above. Like this, but I'm
I
just
do have my check valve going.
excellent. Yeah, but I find it to be the absolute best way. It's one less thing to clean as well. Like you're
Okay.
not cleaning off the rigid airline tubing that's got all the extra gunk maybe that builds up on it over
Okay.
the 48-hour hatch cycle or whatever.
I
But
will absolutely give that a shot. Anything to make my
yeah,
life easier and fish keeping
yeah,
faster, I
it
will
because
do.
it's coming up right from the bottom. Like I feel like
Yeah,
that's like
yeah, yeah.
max
the perfect area to have that airflow. I get
I
it.
would like to think so. Although you're gonna be like, Raina, that was a terrible idea. That was the worst.
No, I'm gonna. Has somebody posted this on the forum? I feel like this is like key information people should know.
I don't know. Are you telling me that
If
I
it
should post
works,
it?
absolutely.
It should be.
There's already like a bunch of like how to hatch brine shrimp forum posts.
Mhm.
I feel like that would be a nice little hack to just be like,
Mm.
oh, and by the way, if you made it to the end of this post, try this.
It should be a forum poll. Do you aerate from the top of the
Yeah,
Ziz hatcher, or do
exactly.
you aerate from the bottom of the Ziz hatcher? So, although Corey would try to throw his weight around and be like, no, you got to go from the top. And that's kind of the origin of the night shower, day shower post. I don't know if you saw that on the Instagram
from you guys,
from YouTube. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And for the record, night shower is 60% on top versus the 40% of people who do the morning shower.
I would be a morning person. That's just how I roll.
Oh,
work out, and then
shower.
take a shower. But when I lived in Houston growing up, I mean, it's just way too hot. So you have to take a shower before you go to bed. Otherwise, the bed's gonna be nasty. In Colorado, it's like perfect temperature.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. Well, I'll never tell Corey that I'm mildly agreeing with you on that. So, yeah, that was good times. Okay, so Irene, we were like, man, we didn't even hit like the main topic, and we're already at like an hour and 10 minutes.
I'm just that interesting of a person. That's why.
It happens, and that makes things easier for me as a host. So let's touch a little bit on writing blog articles. So like, what has been your experience of going from, so you are a college graduated electrical engineer. You worked for a company doing electrical engineering kind of things, and now you write blog articles and produce YouTube content for a fish store, basically. So like, what did that kind of look like? Yeah. So how did that happen, and how are blog kind of fill me in on your process for writing good blog articles, because yours are phenomenal.
Thank you. I got out of college, joined an engineering company, and that engineering company had 3 different routes. You could either go into R&D, research and development, so that's your typical hardcore engineering. You could go into marketing for engineers. So after the engineers make the product, somebody's got to like write the content around it, like write those technical white papers, go to the trade shows, do the website, and a lot of times the R&D guys, they're not great. Like the people connection, right? And then we had sales, so people who would sell the engineering products. And so I went the marketing route, and so that's how I got used to writing technical white papers. And so my career right before Aquarium Coop was actually kind of a technical marketing firm for hire. So if your engineering company was too small to have its own marketing firm, you could hire our marketing firm, and then I would write your technical white paper and your presentations and all that. But it was just really I would say mentally taxing. It's like being in college, honestly. Every single week, it's like your professor teaches you something new, and you have to write a paper on it. And then the next week, you're going to forget it all, and your professor's going to teach you something new, and you're going to write a paper on it. And so it was like one week I'm writing about capacitors. The next week I have to learn all about LiDAR for smart cars. And the next week it was just like, my brain was just like hurting so badly. So writing about fish and something I love is crazy easy, and I love it. But there are a lot of similarities of how do I take some very technical information. I feel like this is a very, very technical hobby in many ways. And how do I simplify it for someone who is new to the hobby, but also still make it relevant for somebody who's maybe more experienced in the hobby, and they both find value out of it. So I would say my process right now is a lot of it is combing through some of Corey's most famous popular videos that have been like published like 2-3 years down the road. And it's like really great information. And why don't we convert it into a blog form? Because some people just aren't YouTubers, right? And they would rather consume it in more of a text format. From there, I have a keyword research tool that Corey pays money for. And so I kind of search like, what are the top questions that people are asking about, let's say, I don't know, powerheads, right? I had a blog post that just came out this week. What are the top questions that people are asking about water circulation in freshwater aquariums? I'll go to Google, like when you type something into Google, they'll often have the top questions that are asked about that topic. So I kind of look for what are people asking about. I do my research, whether it's based on Corey's video, or a lot of times in his videos, he doesn't cover everything. And so I have to do my own research and look at other sources. And then it's like, is this source trustworthy? Can I trust what they're saying? And then take all that information and then put it into some kind of, make an outline and put it into some kind of usable format. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to make it into a very like, again, easy to digest and really pinpointing those like top questions that people are asking about, let's say powerheads or whatever. And then from there, insert my stock photos in there, send it off to Corey. He reviews it and then I upload it and then it goes off into the ether. So I do a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of marketing around it. So I do tend to, you guys see it. I post it every week on the YouTube community tab. So it's going to be there if you ever miss it. And it also gets sent out on the e-newsletters. But really, it's Google is picking it up. So Google search is picking it up based on all the kind of keywords I'm putting in there, search engine optimization, all that. Yeah, and that's kind of the trick to writing blog posts.
Yeah,
And trying
and
to keep it interesting.
yeah, no, for sure. And as enormous as YouTube is in influencing our hobby, the simple Google search to a blog article for kind of
Yeah.
anything is really key and really fundamental. Like, whatever it is I get into, of course, you're going to do the Google searches. And my first instinct, to your point, is to actually look at something written as opposed to just diving into YouTube and like watching this person, spiel about something for 10 minutes before they actually go and
Yes.
explain what the thing is I'm looking for. So, finding good blog sources. And also, I would assume that our blogs are not jam-packed with like ads and crap.
Correct.
So that is,
I hate that.
oh my goodness, that's
But
another
that's how
like,
they got to make money, right? They got to
yeah.
make money. So
No, they
unless
don't. No,
you're
they
a
don't.
business like Aquarium Co-op, a business like Aquarium Co-op, we have
Yeah.
products, that can support. And when you guys click on our blog post and then you click on a product that's linked in there, you absolutely support the process of us continuing to offer free educational content for you guys. So thank you, everyone
Yeah,
who
and
reads our
that's actually
blog.
a really valid angle too that I never even had considered as far as like what would be an advantage of consuming one of our blog articles versus another
Mhm.
one is that you're not going to be inundated with a million pop-ups and 50% of your screen real estate being taken up by a scrolling ad, which very, very distracting.
Well, and it's hard to tell sometimes whether, because I'm doing my research online too, whether these blog posts that I'm reading are accurate or not. Because a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, top 10, I don't know, filters," right? But a lot of these blogs, they're being basically like kind of funded by companies. Like they're like paying them, like, "Hey, if you promote our filter,
Mm,
then and write a good thing about it," and you're like, "Is this review actually legit or not?" Versus at Aquarium Coop, us, we only offer, like, we don't offer a bazillion filters, right? Or a
mm-hmm.
bazillion whatevers. Like, we have curated our product selection like it's only the best. Like what we personally use, we know it's trusted, it's proven. If you buy into our culture and kind of the way we use, fish keep, the way we do fish keeping, like we're only going to offer you like the top product, and you don't have to swim through like, oh, there's like 100 bottles of fish food. Like I have no idea which one to use. It's like, nope, these are like the key ones we use. So that's kind of another reason why I like our blog posts. Is like we're only going to recommend like what we personally use, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to give you 20 choices for the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. It's a heavily curated product
Yes.
offering. And, sometimes it'd be nice to be able to offer the moon, but at other times it's like, no, this makes great business sense, but it also makes great sense just for the consumer to not be inundated with a million different types of varieties of the same product. And, I feel bad when you walk into smaller mom and pop brick and mortar shops and they're
Yeah.
basically like, kind of held at knife point to carry like every SKU under the sun of a certain brand. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
you want to sell this wildly popular product? Well, guess what? You're going to set up this massive display that has 30 other SKUs on it because you want these like one or two main popular SKUs that we carry. And it's a
Mhm.
really kind of gross aspect of not just our hobby, but like many, many, many industries do that to retailers. Okay, oh, you want this thing? You're going to sell the whole kit and caboodle then. If you want to offer this, where we can go, no, 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 my friend.
Yes.
We are just going to carry that. And if you
Yes.
don't want us to carry that, then that's okay. We won't. And more often than not, it's like, okay, you can just have this one thing. So,
Well, I do feel, yeah, I feel very lucky that Aquarium Co-op does have the fan base that you guys do support us so that we aren't forced to, oh, wow, in order to carry this product, we do have to take up, a room with 30 other products that we don't want to use,
yeah,
right? We do have the luxury of
yeah.
doing that curated
I have no
collection.
room in our warehouse to carry unneeded excess product. So I can,
Didn't I hear Corey shopping for more warehouses? Are you going
yeah,
along those trips too?
I'm the one dragging him along. Yeah.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
But yeah, we did it. We did a little warehouse shopping, and hopefully we'll have some positive news here in the future. But yeah, it's
Good luck with that process.
Ah, yeah, it's gonna be a breath of fresh air when a new warehouse is set up, but the like we're just in the infant planning stages, and so it's gonna be a lot of brain cycles are gonna be dedicated to this new warehouse.
Oh
Um,
man, better you, not me.
like Irene, you gotta come in. Randy passed out. We
Yeah.
need we need to leverage your experience.
I
Um,
know nothing.
that's okay. Neither do I. I just fake it till you make it. So you were how did you start writing for Aquarium Co-op? And I can give some
Mm,
backstory of we maybe Corey had written some blog articles, but I know just as we have grown, we need to um, break off and specialize and have specialized roles. And so one of that is with blog articles. And I think kind of how it starts out with, and you alluded to how what companies do for technical writing or marketing materials is that if they're not large enough to have that own department, they'll kind of farm it out to a contractor. And then they get to a point where they are large enough and then they bring that in house. And so I think that's been our growth with blog articles, in that we know it's important. We need to provide it. We're not, there's enough on our plates as it is that we can't do it. So we have to go out and find somebody that can. And then you get to a point where you can actually just bring that person on full time, right? It's that important. It's that much of the business. It's large enough to necessitate a full time employee. And I have read some of the blog articles for the hobby. Corey provides a topic, like goes to, I don't know, freelancer.com, like whatever the heck the
mhm.
website is. And the level of quality and the things that I read to proof were terrible. There are many, many, many people out there that will just, kick out whatever. And maybe for other companies, that's cool. Like, hey, you check these main boxes. Like, instead of an X, you used a check mark, even though we asked you to do an X instead of a check mark, kind of thing. But they'll just go ahead and take that and be like, that's good. Where we're always like, no, that's garbage. And then all of a sudden, like, you had come along somehow, and it's like, man, this article is amazing. Like, yes, like we should totally use this. Like, it's at a premium price, but it's a premium product, and that's kind of what we're also all about. So with your brain exploding as you learn new things every week for your day job,
Mhm.
how did you decide to start doing some freelance blog articles for fish?
So it was only ever Aquarium Coop. I kind of did like I would transfer some of my YouTube videos into my own blog posts on my own website, but they were very, very casual. Honestly, what happened was on one of his live streams, Corey was like, "Oh, we're looking for somebody to do our e-newsletters," because he didn't want to do them anymore, right? So I emailed him, was like, "Hey, I have this background. Oh, by the way, I could also transform some of your videos into blog articles too. I have that ability." And he kind of honed in on that. I don't know if that was like the start of the blog search or if he had already been searching, but I've seen like he clearly did, tried out lots and lots of people. And so eventually we got to the point where I offered, he contacted me back. So I think he had tried some other people. It didn't work out. And he was like, "Hey, I remember you saying, the blog posting, do you want to throw your hat in the ring?" And I was like, "Sure. Why don't I?" And I kind of, at that point, I wasn't really looking for another job. And so I was like, "Why don't I just do some guest posts?" I was looking to actually promote my YouTube channel. And so I was like, "I'll just do some guest posts for you." And he really liked him, and then he was like, "Okay, let's do this on like a contractor basis." And then he still really liked it, and then he was like, "Okay." At some point, I guess he couldn't find another cheaper blog post blog writer that had the quality in mind, and so he was like, "What would it take to get you on board full time?" And I was like, "All right." So kind of looked at the numbers. And at the time, I was actually a contractor for my previous company too. And I was like, "If you give me benefits and match my previous company, let's go."
Nice.
And so that's what he did. And
So talking the decision over with your husband, was there any hesitancy of like, man, we're going from this like major established industry career path, working for somebody that's
yeah.
got, you effectively have less skin in the game, or there's less risk there, I would think. And for myself as well, like coming from a multi-billion-dollar multinational company to like, oh, I'm gonna go work for a fish store
Yeah. Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
of Seattle,
No,
Washington.
there
Like,
was I definitely knew my previous company had like lots and tons of work coming in. Like it was going to be a stable paying job, but it was just killing my soul.
I
Honestly,
can feel it.
I could
Yes,
not
yes.
like, and I was at a point where I needed to start working full time again because my kids were both, in elementary school. And so I had to, and I just could not imagine expanding to full time doing this, like, 8 hours a day or whatever. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, we have got to change. And it was a bit of a risk because I was like, yeah, it's a smaller company. I mean, it kind of felt, it was not that it was a startup, but it just felt so small,
For sure.
and I was like, but I don't know. I think that it was just so enticing because he was really willing to match kind of what I wanted in an offer, and it was about fish, and I just would love, you know, I mean, it just sounded like so perfect. So I was like, let's give it a shot. And the fact is, I still had a really good relationship with my previous company, so I'm sure if like Aquarium Coop had fallen completely apart and it didn't work out, like they probably would have been more than happy to take me back, and then I'd have to have my soul drained again for a living. So.
How do you, when people ask like who you work for, like what do you do, like how do you describe that? Because I find that to
Oh my
be
goodness.
mildly challenging.
I say I do marketing for an aquarium company, and then I
Mm,
just try not to get into it.
mm,
I just like leave it. They're like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, and I
yeah.
just don't say anything else because it's complicated.
Yeah, it is, I don't know. Like, I guess depending on the conversation, like sometimes I'll say I work for a fish store, or sometimes I'll say I work for, like if I really don't know the person, I'll just say like, oh yeah, I work for a e-commerce.
Yeah,
I, I
I
do
do marketing. I
I
do
do
marketing
operations
though.
supply chain for an e-commerce company. We have a warehouse up in Everett, and just kind of leave it at that. Sometimes I'll probe more, and then inevitably it'll be like, ah, and I also have a fish room of 40 aquariums, and it's like,
Yeah.
what?
I
Yeah.
never ever go there unless like you're close enough where I'm willing to invite you to my house and you will see them. Then I'll share that with you. But I
It
just like I don't.
as much as she'll like make fun of me, it is the ultimate party trick for my wife to show people the fish room. She's like,
Oh yeah,
"Do
yeah,
you
that's
want to see a
true.
fish room?" And it's like, they're like, "What?" Yeah, come on, let me show you this room that my crazy husband built in the garage and what he does. And like when people walk in, they don't know what to expect. They're just like, "What is this?" And then I tell them, "And this is a small fish room. Like this is not a large fish room. This is a small fish room. Like if I had a basement in
I
the
love what
Midwest,
you've done with it though. I love it absolutely. It's awesome.
it's just a crappy version of what Dean has.
You
That's all I
know,
say."
not everybody can have an urban fish farm like Corey and like dedicated, you know, giant former car garage
It's
transformed into a huge breeding facility kind of. Yeah, not
it's
everybody
pretty
can have
wild. And
that.
actually, if anything, you need an excuse to come out so you can see Elmer in person.
I know, I can't wait. He's gonna be
That
so big by the time I get there.
that turtle is the cutest, most adorable
Oh my
thing that you could
goodness.
see. Like it, like waddling itself in the water as it swims. It's like, oh my god, you're adorable. Like, do I have to try to
Is
get this?
he
Like,
is he still really shy or is he getting coming out of his
no,
shell?
yeah,
Fun.
yeah. You stay in that shell, Elmer. All right, we got a lot riding on you, buddy. No, I mean he's always out and about. He doesn't like run
Okay.
away or anything.
Because all I've seen is only the very first video, and
Right.
obviously that was like right when he got released, so of course he's gonna be a
Yeah.
little shy. But
Yeah, no, he comes out, snap pictures of him.
okay.
I posted some on Instagram. I think Joel was able to post some on Instagram. So yeah, he's
Mm.
definitely swimming out and about, and in like that 240-gallon aquarium he's in right now. And somebody had commented and was like, those things get massive, right? And I'm like, one, it's not mine, and two,
Yeah.
of all the people that's gonna own this thing, don't worry, Bo. Don't worry, my
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's gonna be well taken care of. Which I didn't respond, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no
That's
worries.
awesome.
So, all right, Irene, we have taken up so much of your time, and
Whee!
we should almost go down like the gaming route and just spend the next half hour. We'll make this the longest Aquarius podcast ever, and then the back half hour will be about miniature gaming and whatnot.
Oh my
But
gosh, that'd be awesome. You know what? All that means is you gotta invite me back for part 2, Irene. Huh?
absolutely, no, let's do it. I mean, we could probably go back and actually spend a little bit more time on the blog articles, maybe some specific ones that you have really found useful, maybe some ideas that you have for future blog articles.
I'll be
But
honest, I will actually reference my own, like go back and research my own blog articles sometimes. Kind of like, what did I write about that again? And I will
yeah,
literally go on the Aquarium Co-op website and be like, oh yeah, okay, that's
yeah.
what I need to do.
Well, and people don't know this, but so the water wisteria that we sell right now
Hmm.
is imported and it's grown submerged. So there's no
Yes.
conversion that people have to do at home. However, prior to that,
Yeah.
the only water wisteria that's available here in the States from the domestic farms in Florida is grown immersed. Okay,
Hmm.
so what does that mean? That means the consumer has to go through the conversion process at home. And we take the customer experience so to the 10th degree here that Irene was sent some of these plants, and the whole purpose was document the crap out of this experience. What is the customer going to expect, and build out a whole educational series on
Yeah.
if you buy this unconverted water wisteria from us, what can you expect? What is going to happen? Here are the photos at day 1 to day 14 to day 21, like
Hmm.
all these things that you can expect. And like that.
And then Randy goes and sources submersed wisteria and totally invalidates all my work. Nice job.
Hey,
Just kidding.
you know,
For people who buy from other sources, though, they will find that information very useful.
yeah.
So.
I mean, I would say though, I mean, with geopolitical instability, with the
never
the
know.
way flights are, that every import order that I bring in from overseas is like, is this the last one?
Yeah.
Is this the last one? And for me, that's like, you know, why we should eventually go down the rabbit hole of like a co-op plant farm where we actually start growing and propagating our own plants, which, you know,
awesome.
Corey has his strong feelings about that, and which there's many valid concerns, but you know, we've seen that the farms can't keep up with our demand solely. We source from like 5 or 6 different places, and not a single one can be our single sole supplier. Not that we would want that.
One of my local fish stores totally called you guys out.
Uh-oh.
I was like going in and I was looking at the plants, and they're like, yeah, we don't have a lot of plant selection. Somebody from Aquarium Coop went to Florida and got all our plants.
You're welcome.
I was like, oh my goodness.
I like those trips. I like when I get to go to Florida and see the farms. No, I mean, they will still allocate, and that's part of, so as the greedy buyer, that's part of the problem. Is that they will still allocate for their smaller businesses. As a hobbyist, that's a great thing that they do that. So that way people in other parts of the country still get their plants. However, you know, the farm that we source pennywort from, and now there's 3 farms that we source pennywort from, but the first one, upon launch, they gave me all the assurances in the world, even with the demand numbers that I provided them, and us as a customer for a year and a half of, oh, don't worry, we'll be able to keep up with your demand. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Wiped them out in like the first 2 weeks. It's like you knew this was happening. You knew this was coming. Like we gave you the numbers, and so luckily a couple of the other farms were able to step up and produce for us. But yeah, and some of the problems is that they just produce every plant under the sun, right? So they don't have a heavily curated list, and a lot of them are into seasonal pond plants, which actually one of the farms is going to really scale that back, because basically what happens is you get this like intense growing season for pond plants that lasts like, I don't know, 3 weeks. Like you have like this 3-week window to sell all these marginal in, you know, whatever people need for their ponds. You have this very intense window to grow and to sell them. And what this one farm in particular, when we talked in person on my visit, was that, you know, and of course I'm going to encourage them to stop doing this and to just focus on aquarium plants, is that
sales skills.
it's not good for your business. It's not good supply chain. It's not good for your personnel. It's just it's not good for your business planning. And that's one of the reasons why we don't run any sales anymore, is that you can't plan around it. And so what do we want to generate sales 3 times a year at some crazy level, and then just have it like an unpredictable demand supply chain throughout the rest of the year? Or you just offer competitively low prices and excellent service all the time, so consumers have the confidence that they can buy from us whenever they want, and not worry about, oh, I missed out on a sale. I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts. But yeah, so one of the farms is going to stop doing the pond plants nearly as much, and hopefully they can, you know, kick up a little bit more on the aquatic plants, the aquarium plants. But then there's still so many other they grow like 1 million varieties of Amazon sword. Like how many varieties of Amazon sword do we really need?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, if we had our own farm, we would just specialize in obviously what we grow and try to propagate a couple of new ones here and there. But yeah. So
we shall see.
Yeah. Nobody listens this far, so nobody's going to know that juicy detail. All right, Irene, thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast. I've loved every minute of this conversation, pre-interview and during interview. And see, isn't that awesome that we went 2 years without talking, and now it's like, oh, hey,
we have so much to say to each other.
Or
we're gonna have to.
Or should we wait every 2 years to talk to each other?
Oh no, I hope not.
We can only talk to each other.
No.
We can only talk to each other on a 2-year basis. That ensures that we have stuff to talk about.
Hopefully, be able to do a fish room tour of your sweet digs,
and you will be
show my audience.
So disappointed. You'll be so disappointed.
No. It's gonna be everything that I hope to be one day, but a little bit of smaller scale, because I don't have a garage, so I have a tiny corner, so we'll see.
Well, you are absolutely more than welcome, of course. So, Irene, until then, until our next conversation or our next email for work, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Same here. Thanks, everyone, for listening.